Hi guys, Geoffrey here. In this video, I'm going to show you the 4 stages of internal mastery that all my clients have to go through whenever they're trying to save their relationship from the brink of divorce or separation. And be sure to stick around till the very end of this video because at this point we have witnessed hundreds of men transform their lives and become really the best version of themselves that allows them to save their relationship despite being in very hopeless situations. And every single time we see our clients make these massive transformations and get massive results, we see that they always go through the same 4 stages of internal development first before the outcome can even happen. And if we look at the people who fail to get the results they want, they're really the ones who are not making these 4 stages of internal shifts. So these 4 stages of internal shifts are going to be very, very crucial for you. And this might be a longer video than normal, but this is going to be key if you want to be successful in your journey to saving your marriage. And for those of you who are new to this channel, my name is Geoffrey and I help men in long-term relationships or in marriages with the right skills and with the right mindsets to be able to design a thriving relationship for yourself. So if you want more content on this topic, then be sure to subscribe to this channel and click the bell button as well to be notified when I post new videos every single week. Now, before we begin, I also want to let you know that the free masterclass on the 5 proven steps to rebuilding your relationship from the ground up is still open. And if you want to either join the Relationship Rebel program or join this masterclass, then be sure to stick around till the very end of this video for the announcement on how you can do that. Now let's start with stage 1 here. And stage 1 is all about raising your standards of possibility. So what does this mean? Now I want to start this by discussing what we call the 10-second barrier. And so if you look back just 70 years ago, for example, it was considered impossible for humans to run the 100-meter dash in under 10 seconds. But that was 70 years ago, and fast forward to today, even high school runners and amateur runners are running that time, sub 10, on a daily basis. It's almost an expectation and a given now. So how do we go from 7 years ago, running under 10 seconds being an impossibility, to now even amateurs running under 10 seconds? What changed? Well, our anatomies didn't change, our bodies didn't change. What changed was simply our expectations, our standards of what was possible. And because our standards changed, because the realm of possibility increased for us, we started to not only hope more, but this hope motivates us to ask better questions. And these better questions allows us to get better answers to our problems. And so what is crucial to understand here is that the knowledge that you have today really defines the realm of what you think is possible. And the problem here lies when the knowledge that you have today, it may be limited, and so your realm of possibility is quite small. And so if that happens, if your, let's say, desired outcome lies beyond what you think is possible, then you will stop asking the questions. Just like the runners back then, 70 years ago, imagine if someone came to them and they said, hey, did you know that running a 9.28 second 100-meter dash is possible? They would scoff, they would laugh, and they would just be extremely skeptical of that claim, and they would not even consider it anymore because they already have this idea in their head of what's possible, and what's possible was defined by what they know today. And this actually is how I observe now how a lot of people live, and this is understandable because I used to be this way as well, where we're using our current set of knowledge to allow us to be skeptical of what is possible. So for example, if I say to you, you can be 100% bulletproof, where you can be 100% in control of your emotions. And you can also be in 100% control of the frameworks. So you can turn every single negative, and I mean every single negative, from negative into positive. That you can reconcile in your relationship despite your partner already filing for divorce, despite the fact that there is an affair, despite the fact that you have no contact or zero contact. And despite the fact that your partner may be stonewalling you or gaslighting you. So if I tell you these claims, a lot of you are going to doubt me. A lot of you are going to be skeptical of that and say, is it really possible? But you have to be careful of this type of skepticism. The danger that a lot of people fall into is that they spend a lot of time using their existing knowledge to remain skeptical of the new possibilities, to remain skeptical of expanding their circle of possibilities. So essentially what is happening is they spend a lot of time using their skepticism to confirm their existing knowledge, to confirm that this realm of possibility is indeed the true realm of possibility, rather than actually spending time and energy expanding that realm of possibility. So I hope this distinction makes sense for you here. And this would be a really big shame because, being 100% bulletproof, being 100% in control of conversations using the frameworks, and reconciling despite being in very hopeless situations, no matter how hopeless you think your situation is, is very possible, and it happens every single day in our program. But if you spend too much time using your skepticism, using your set of knowledge to doubt a new realm of possibility, then you are going to start to feel hopeless. You're going to start to give up on your dreams, and you're going to convince yourself to really settle for where you are. And so what do we do here? How can we start to remedy this a bit better? Well, there's two quotes that I always tell people. The first one says, you cannot solve your problems with the same set of knowledge that you used to create it. That in order to get different results, you have to be willing and open-minded enough to explore and consider alternative points of views, alternative mindsets, alternative methodologies, alternative principles to allow you to get beyond what you think is possible. And so what do we need to do here? What do we need to do to start expanding our realm of what's possible? Well, the first thing to do is admit that you don't know something. So if you're not getting closer to your outcome, if you don't feel like you can get to your outcome, then it starts with the admission that maybe, perhaps, there is something that you don't know. And the second thing you must do here is that you have to admit that your problems may not be the most difficult or the most unique problems there are. Because, everyone who applies for our program, they always start out thinking that, wow, my problem must be the most difficult, the most unique. It's very special. But once they join the program and they see the really bad situations that our other clients have in our program, they realize that, wow, my situation is really not that bad. Because you also have to understand here that, people do not seek help until their situation is very dire. And so just by nature of that principle itself, whenever people join our program, it means that their situation is dire. And the third thing you must admit here is that not only is your situation not the most unique, but also that people who started off in worse positions than you are in have achieved massive success, and that's within the realm of possibility. And once you make these three admissions, it makes it very easy and much easier for you to open your mind or start to open your mind to new possibilities. And we see this very apparently in our client set as well. Within our program, we have a community, and this is a Facebook community. It's a paid community where all the people who've taken the program are there intermingling and talking about the principles and sharing their wins, sharing their success. And the people who enroll in that community, in that Facebook group, they usually do a lot better and gain more success and experience a much deeper change than the people who do not join that community. And we always wondered why that is. And we realized that because when people join that community, they really expose themselves to the fact that, again, their situation is not the most unique, and other people just like them are experiencing massive success despite being in worse off situations. And so what happens here is that it becomes a much more humbling experience for them. And it allows them to subconsciously realize the three realizations that we talked about earlier and start to force them to expand their horizon of what's possible. Now, this might seem like a small deal and a very obvious detail, but this is absolutely key, because this is when you graduate your mindset away from seeing something as impossible to finally getting back that hope, which is a massive shift that you need if you want to keep yourself motivated to actually seek answers, to actually seek better questions and seek better answers as well. And so this is just like the runners, because that new realm of possibility has been opened up in someone's heads. They are the ones who start asking better questions, and they're the ones who find better answers. And so they're not stuck in the cycle of confirming that their existing realm of possibility is the only realm of possibility that is possible. This is when you graduate from seeing something as an impossibility to finally hoping. And once you hope, you start to see the having. You start to see what you could potentially have in terms of a result. Now, the stage two, the second stage, is what we call the identification and implementation of the right processes. And this stage is going to be crucial because this is when you graduate from envisioning that having of an outcome, what could possibly be, to the doing part. So having becomes doing. And when it comes to identifying the right processes, there's two main principles that you have to understand here. The first is about understanding the difference between reference-based thinking and what we call first principles thinking. And this is really differentiating also the difference between tactics and principles. So let's first talk about what is reference-based thinking. So reference-based thinking essentially is using what other people say and using the common advice, using the popular advice to define what you should do. You're looking at blogs, you're looking at what is the most popular advice about relationships today. So you could think about no contact, for example. And because it's a popular advice that is believed by many people, then you think, oh, that must be right. If other people are doing it, I should do it as well. That's reference-based thinking, and so it's called reference-based because you're referencing what you think you should do, you're understanding based on what other people are doing. Now, let's look at first principles thinking. What is first principles thinking? Well, first principles thinking is essentially breaking down principles to its basic truths, to its fundamental truths, until it cannot be broken down anymore. That is the root core truth that all knowledge can be stemmed from. And so here, you're not really needing to listen or to talk to other people or to get reference from other people, but you're simply sourcing your diagnosis or sourcing your knowledge from internal and deciding what to do from your understanding of the first principles. Now, this can seem really, really hard to understand. So let me give you one example in relationships that I think will really encapsulate the differences in the two types of thinking here. So the first example is about how you manage emotions. So in this channel, we talked a lot about becoming bulletproof. And in order for you to create safety, in order for you to start getting that trust and safety, you need to understand how to become bulletproof. And that means that you need to understand how to manage your emotions. So if you're using reference-based thinking for how you manage your emotions, then you're going to start to hear things like you need to journal. You need to maybe take walks in the park. You need to breathe. And you might hear all these little tactics to keep yourself calm, right? All these anger management tactics. So that's reference-based thinking. But if you try to break this down to the first principles, you will understand that the first principles of emotions is that emotions are formed by the interpretations that you make. It's the stories that you tell yourself in the moment. For example, if I see my partner stonewalling as a character issue, as abuse, as her trying to just have control over me, then I'm going to start feeling very frustrated at my partner whenever she stonewalls me. But if I see stonewalling as simple resistance due to the self-preservation, due to the lack of safety, that she's probably tried talking to you many times, but every time she tries to talk to you, she ends up regretting it because of various reasons. So if you choose to see and interpret that, her stonewalling as a self-preservation issue and a lack of safety issue, a lack of trust issue, then it's going to make it easier for you to stay calm, to stay compassionate, and to be understanding. And so here you get the same event. Your partner is stonewalling you, but because you're interpreting it in two different ways, that forms two very different emotions in you as well. So we have to understand that the first principles of emotions here is that it's formed by the interpretations that you make, the stories that you tell yourself. So if we understand that first principle about emotions, then we also have to understand that in order to stay bulletproof, in order to manage your emotions, it's about managing and shifting your interpretations from negative into positive. So if you look at that, then we can look back at these reference-based thinking principles like meditation and realize that it doesn't really work. So does meditation change your interpretation? Often it doesn't. Does breathing change your interpretation? Often it doesn't. Does journaling change your interpretation? It really doesn't. So what a lot of people do when they fall into the trap of reference-based thinking is that they do journaling, they do meditation, and they can stay calm in the moment. But then an event happens in their life, in their relationship, and they make the same interpretation in their head, and they feel very upset. And this is why people can go on a 12-month meditation retreat, and they come back from it, and they could have road rage on the way home from the airport. It's a very common thing. Because fundamentally, they're not using their first principles to understand that in order to change their emotions, they have to change the way they interpret the world. The mistake that I see a lot of people making here is that they spend their whole lives when they're trying to save their relationship or make their relationship better, they spend their whole lives just trying to figure out all these hundreds of tactics that they can use. When they try these hundreds of things, they realize it doesn't work immediately. It doesn't work in the short term. It doesn't work right away. And they start to get hopeless. They start to doubt it. They start to be skeptical of it. And so they take one, they try it, it doesn't work. Then they pick another one, they try it, it doesn't work again. And they keep cycling through these different tactics and never getting out of this cycle. So people talk about, for example, tactics like the 5 love languages, tactics like figuring out your attachment styles, managing emotions in the previous ways that we talked about, like meditation, journaling, and so on. And they focus on the tactics to what to say, what to do to convince their partner. Perhaps they do no contact in the short term, or they do smart contact perhaps. And so they try all these tactics, but nothing really works. And so they really get hopeless and give up because they don't have the right process, because they're doing reference-based thinking and not first principles-based thinking. So what should you do instead? So instead of reference-based thinking, you need to learn how to think via first principles and understand what is a first principles knowledge versus what is a reference-based knowledge. And what you're looking for here are really what we call the Swiss Army knife types of information, where you learn one thing, one principle, and you can do many things with that principle. And that's when you usually know you're getting closer to that first principle. It's when you can find that deeper core understanding that will allow you to basically make many diagnoses and a lot of understanding on what to do next from that one piece of knowledge. We can talk deeper about what these first principles are, because there's many first principles when it comes to relationships. So if you want more details on this, then I want you to join me in the masterclass that I mentioned in the beginning of this video, and I will announce how you can join that masterclass at the end of this video. And this is also why my videos are rarely about tactics. I rarely tell you exactly what to say and do, but I give you the principles that you can go by, which allows you to just be creative and improvise your own approach. And it's also why our students get a very high level of clarity on what they need to do, how to diagnose their situation, and how to create this massive changes really, really quickly as well. Because again, we're focusing on those Swiss Army information. Now, the second part to identifying the right process here is also understanding the difference between motion and action. So what is the difference here? There was a very interesting study done where researchers took a classroom and divided it into two groups. And in one group, they were told, your job for the semester is to take one photo, but I want that photo to be the one perfect photo. So really they were rated on the quality of that photo. Then the second group was told, I don't care about the quality, I just care about the quantity of the photos. You will need to take 1,000 photos for the semester. Right, so one was rated on quality, the other was rated on quantity. Now we would think here that the group that was rated on quality will end up having the better picture, the better quality picture photo at the end of the semester. But actually, the group that was rated on quantity ended up having a higher quality photo. Now, how does this happen? Well, it turns out that because the group that was rated on quantity just simply took photos, in the process they were taking photos, they also looked at their photos. And when they're looking at the photos, they naturally and subconsciously also critique their own photos. And so because they did that, they took action and just simply taking photos, they progressed faster and they experienced much massive growth. While the first group that was rated on quality, they didn't take that many photos. Instead, they just conceptualized everything. They thought about everything. And they felt like they were planning and researching about the perfect way to take a photo, but because they only stayed in conceptual knowledge, they didn't really take the conceptual knowledge to an experiential knowledge. And this is really the difference between motion and action. You know, I see a lot of people when they're struggling in their relationship and they're trying to salvage it, they're really stuck in this motion part where they're simply conceptualizing everything. Like in the previous example, we talked about the people who are always skeptical, the people who are always thinking, seeing if this is possible or not. They're just stuck in analysis paralysis. Now these guys, they're busy. They feel like they're doing a lot, but really they're not getting much done. They're not growing too much. So they think they're moving forward, but what they're doing is really just running around in circles. How you should live your life is really understand how to take action so that you can graduate from conceptual knowing and go into experiential knowing. And so the best way to understand how to move from conceptual knowing to experiential knowing is eating chocolate. So for example, imagine if you've never eaten chocolate before. And you could read a 10,000 page book describing to you how chocolate tastes like, feels like, but it can never beat the hundreds of hours you spend reading that book can never beat a simple and small bite of chocolate. The small and simple bite of chocolate can beat a 100,000 page book. That is the power of experiential knowing, and that is what it means to graduate from conceptual knowing to experiential knowing. That is crucial because that is when you're actually moving forward. That is when you're actually getting better. So to summarize, this is when you're not only just identifying the right knowledge, which is the first principles knowledge, and understanding the difference between motion and action, and understanding how to take action every single day to actually get to your outcome, to your destination. And again, this is crucial because this is when you graduate from that having part, that hope part, and into the doing part. Having to doing. Now, stage 3 here of the change is really what I call the shifting identity to the new process. And so once people start doing the processes that we talked about earlier, they realize that there's something else missing. You know, they cannot be consistent with it. It feels fake. It feels ingenuine. It feels difficult. It feels energy exhausting. And as we always say, when you're trying to, fight confirmation bias, when you're trying to regain trust and safety in a relationship, it's not about the 99 things you do right. It's about the one thing you're doing wrong. Because you're fighting some very intense confirmation bias here. So this inconsistency, this feeling like it's an uphill battle becomes a real problem. Now, to understand what it means to shift your identity to your new process, I want you to imagine here that you're standing right now in front of two smokers, right? And these two smokers right now, they're trying to quit. They're both trying to quit. And you are trying to stir the pot here, and so you give each of them a cigarette. The first person says to you, hey, no thanks, I'm trying to quit smoking. It's like, okay, cool. You go to the second person to do the same thing, you offer him a cigarette, but then he says, no thanks, I'm not a smoker. Now, they're both trying to quit, but the second person who says they're not a smoker has a higher likelihood of quitting. And so when I see a lot of people, they are in this first category, the first person. They say things like, I'm not someone who's bulletproof, but I'm trying to be. I'm someone with a bad relationship and doesn't know how to talk in a relationship, but I'm trying to do better on that. If that's your mentality and you're focusing on that doing what you need to do, then your chances of getting to your outcome, to your growth, to the better self is going to be very low, just like the first smoker. Because it's not just enough to focus on the doing. There's another stage here where the doing also needs to be supported by that being as well, which is the last layer here, the being part. Because of three things. Because one, it allows you to fight what we call the paradox of change. So what is the paradox of change? If you talk to anyone in this world, people want to become richer. They want to become better. They want a different outcome. They want a different life than what they have today. But what most people don't realize is that to get to the different outcome, they often need to become someone different, a different being, a different person. They need to act differently. They need to talk differently. But as soon as they try to think and act differently, most people start to face doubts and suspicions from the external world. I mean, you feel this in a relationship, for example, when, let's say you listen to my videos and you know that you need to ask more questions and dig deeper. And as soon as you dig deeper, your partner might tell you, hey, you're sounding like a therapist right now. Why are you asking me all these questions? Why are you talking like this? Why are you acting so weird? So you might face that external doubt. And you might also face some internal doubt. You might feel like, oh, I'm being kind of fake. I'm not feeling myself right now. And so all these external and internal doubt often makes the average person slow down and they stop doing the changes. And so the paradox here is that they want to become someone different in order to get to the outcome that they want. But as soon as they try to become someone different, they back down, right? And this is why most people stay average. And in order for you to really fight this paradox of change, you have to master this being side as well. You cannot just focus on a doing, you have to master this being. The second thing that it does is it lets you get through what we call the valley of disappointment. And so what is the valley of disappointment? We often imagine the process of reconciling in your relationship to be this linear progression. But actually it looks more like this, where there's a dip first and then it goes up. And that dip again comes from that previous thing that we talked about, which is the paradox of change. And that as soon as you try to change your behavior, the first thing your partner's going to do is she's going to be very suspicious of you. She's going to question everything you do simply because she wants to really believe that whatever you are and however you're changing is real. And so she's probably told you to change in certain ways many times, but why now? Why change now? Why change the way you talk when we are threatening divorce? And so she's going to be very suspicious of your changes. And this gap where your expectation is above with the reality is what we call the valley of disappointment. And this is where a lot of people give up. And in order for you to get through this stage, you have to, again, go beyond just focusing on the doing to focusing on that being. And you get through that valley of disappointment because this new self, this new you is something that you do regardless. This is just who you are now, right? And that's the only way you can get through that valley of disappointment. And when you can operate the doing from this genuine place of internal being, that is when you can be very genuine. You can seem very genuine. That is when you can seem very consistent. That is when you are bulletproof. You are just foolproof in your approach. Finding this being part is really the crucial difference between people who are successful and people who are failures in terms of their journey in reconciling the relationship, or also if you look at any discourse of life, why people can break through in their business versus people who can't. This is really the difference. The people who succeed, they can really find, identify, and also master that new being, while the people who are struggling, they're the ones who focus on that doing and never get to the being part. And because of that, they never really get to understand how to break through the internal and external resistances that's going to happen every time you try to move to the next level. Now, stage 4 is when they reach this final epiphany. So if you look at this, we have basically established here that your being leads to your doing. Your doing should lead to your having. So if you effortlessly be your new self, then that naturally leads to more effortless doing. The effortless doing will lead to naturally more of the effortless having, the outcomes that you want. But this is where a lot of people differ, because if you talk to a lot of people, they motivate themselves by what they want to have, the having part. So they envision, for example, this is the outcome that I want. Then from there, they work backwards and they say, this is what I want to do. And they often just stop there. So they think that if I do, I will have. And their motivation for the doing is what they want to have. But people in the program, what they learn is they learn this third level, which is being. And so while most people work bottom up, what I want you to do is to start working top to bottom. Define your being first. What do you want to be? Then the being leads to the doing. The doing leads to the having. And so effortless being leads to effortless doing. Effortless doing leads to effortless having. That is the crucial epiphany that people have. And that's when you understand that saving your relationship might take time, but you don't care, because that is who you are. That is your being. And you generally enjoy the doing, the process, because of what you are, your being. And this is really how you get real results. Again, this is how you get to the effortless having, is by first getting to the point where you're effortlessly being. This is when you get really consistent. That is when your changes become very genuine, become very real, become very believable, and become very massive as well. So I know that was more of a more complex video, but I hope that opened your eyes to a new possibility of how you can approach this whole journey in terms of internal shifts that you need to save your relationship. And in our Relationship Revival program, this is something that all of our students basically have mastered. They've really mastered not only identifying, expanding the realm of possibility and getting to the having part, they also have defined the doing, what they need to do, but they also have defined the being side, what they need to be. And because of this, they can start to have a more effortless progression to getting the actual outcome that they want. So if you want more information on this, then I want you to join me in my free masterclass on the 5 proven steps to rebuilding your relationship from the ground up. And in this masterclass, I'll show you the exact process, the exact steps that all my students have used to get the massive success that they want, again, despite being in very dire situations, very hopeless situations. So if you want to join that masterclass, be sure to click the link above my head or also down in the comments or in the description box below this video. And if you're looking for a free guide that can help you understand a bit better on what this doing means, what one of our frameworks really looks like, then I also want you to download the guide I have for you above my head right now, or also down in the comments below or in the description box below this video. And finally, if you want to join a community, a Facebook group where you can ask your questions and actually get good advice from myself or a member of my team, then you can also check out the links down below this video as well. In the meantime, do leave a comment below with what you thought was the most insightful or eye-opening in this video. I would love to hear from you. And if you like this video and found it to be valuable, then click the like button and also subscribe to this channel for more content like this one. And in the meantime, I will leave you with these 2 other videos here with more mindsets and knowledge for you to design a thriving relationship for yourself. For now, I will see you in the next video.